been a bit chilly lately, so we're gonna chop some wood just so we can stay warm at night if it starts getting cold again. Termite damage. Not the craziest amount, but a solid little bit of firewood for maybe a couple few nights depending on how cold it gets. So today is vlog 49, and that means only one thing for me. Being from the San Francisco Bay Area, might have noticed what I was wearing earlier. Oh, it's hard to... Might have noticed what I was wearing earlier. San Francisco 49ers, baby. 49th vlog, we can't not talk about the 49ers. Can't not talk about the 49ers. Isn't that right, Loof? He just wants the stick. Just wants the stick. Oh, got a duck. These branches get so covered in water. Gotta run under them. But yeah, 49ers, for those that don't know, is an American football team based out of San Francisco. Well, now their stadium is in Santa Clara, but they're still the San Francisco 49ers. Just kind of a thing. I think a lot of teams actually do stuff similar, kind of. So yeah, it's a team that I was raised being a fan of, both in my immediate family and my extended family, and kind of like, at first I wasn't a big fan of sports in general, big fan of American football. I was just a Niners fan, and in a lot of ways being into the Niners helped me kind of see and get into sports at large in the last handful of years, and part of what inspired me to then ultimately build Tez Tones and a sports league for artists, because I think there is a lot of benefits and wisdom to the teamwork and the camaraderie of team sports that artists often don't have. You know, the parallel we could have is like when I've been in a band, there's that camaraderie, but if a band breaks up, you don't really have that. Whew, I'm getting out of breath. But yeah, it's just this concept of teams and sports. Shout out to the 49ers. Probably gonna break down some stuff later when we get home, some plays, some seasons, some moments in our life, my life, that relates to them. But yeah, 49ers. By far the most clear it's been all day. Some spots of blue skies, but yeah, it's been pretty overcast for most of the day. Pretty rainy, misty for most of the day. But nice to have a little window. To go a little deeper into what I was talking about, like teamwork and bands and stuff, you know, it's one of these things where when I had my recording studio, it was nice to have people come through, record, have a bunch of musical friends, but that was because I had a service and I was providing that. And then once I moved off grid, I realized I wasn't working with people, wasn't collaborating with people. I realized like I'm pretty isolated, and one of the main ways that I interacted with people was through working, collaborating, mixing and stuff, or even going to shows when I was in San Francisco. But the second I moved off grid, wasn't really connected. So it was like, how can I create something I need in my life, a structure that's like a locker room essentially, you know, a sports league for artists where we have teams. Even the league itself, even if we're competing against each other, there's camaraderie within the league. Like you see people in, you know, NFL, whatever the sport is, being aggressive, going at each other, shit talking during the match, and then afterwards hugging it out, swapping jerseys. You know, there's this like meeting on the field of battle and the respect that goes with it. So I saw that in sports and I thought, man, how can we have something like that? So that's ultimately why I built Tez Tones, was from my appreciation of originally the Niners and then more sports, because I did start watching the Pat McAfee show and heard multiple times on that show, he was an ex-NFL punter, that one of the things people miss the most, more than the games, more than the this, more than that, was the locker room and that camaraderie. And I thought, you know, there's something to that. Like me being younger, from my younger days of being, you know, in a high school band, in a band in college, that's what I miss too, is I miss that camaraderie. So there's something about sports that's so simple, but very powerful. Even an NFL player, they asked him, hey, what's your goal for this year? And he's like, you know, it's the same as every year. I'm trying to win a Super Bowl. And it's being able to boil a lifelong passion, all this energy and all that stuff into one goal, being able to put yourself aside if you need to for the betterment of the team. There's a lot of metaphors, a lot of sayings. Pressure is privilege, the best ability is availability. There's all these things that are like surprisingly deep, and it makes sense, because if you're at the high level of anything, you know, you're gonna have to push yourself and have a lot of discipline and strategy and philosophy to get there. Because something that, you know, it kind of surprised me, I'm gonna be honest, because I think early in life I kind of went from the more, I played soccer as a kid, football to everyone else in the rest of the world. And I eventually stopped playing soccer and went more towards like being a musician, being a rapper, being all those things. And I think there was a pretty big divide of like artists, weirdos, creatives, and athletes. So I think there's this kind of, I don't know if it's even a competition or whatever, you know, a built-up bias against it for a lot of artists, because we want to think we live in this world of creation and nothing's competitive. But by embracing that and acknowledging, yeah, there is a lot of wisdom here, it's been able to help me motivate, help me make more friends, and build something that I really do think is a beautiful thing. Luffy's such a good boy. He always comes and checks back if I don't walk soon enough. He's such a little good boy. I want to share like some of why I like sports, why I like the Niners, things I've experienced. And for me, what I like about it is the storylines. It's getting to know players. It's getting to watch teams grow. It's getting to see rookies that get drafted. And then, like, for example, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. Pick number, was it 262 in the draft? The last pick of the draft. If he wasn't drafted, he would have been a free agent. So close. Ends up being the third string quarterback. And I was watching the preseason games. I was like, oh my God, this guy's got it. This guy's solid. It was him beating out the competition. Seeing Brock Purdy kick butt. At the time we had Trey Lance as our number one. We were getting rid of, we thought, Jimmy Garoppolo. Ended up somehow keeping him after benching him, making him our number two behind Trey Lance. And Brock Purdy was our third string quarterback. Trey Lance gets injured. Jimmy G gets injured. They both go down. This guy who was Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft, comes in as our starting quarterback. Not only that, he finishes out his first game where he comes in as a replacement, wins. I want to say his first actual start was against Tom Brady. His whole family had tickets to see that game because they didn't think he was going to start when they got those tickets. They just wanted to see Tom Brady, see their family member in the game with him. Brock Purdy not only ends up starting, he ends up winning. First rookie, I believe, in his first game against Brady to win, like in years and years, if he wasn't the first at all. Like, oh my God. Dude, there are some birds in these bushes that I swear, if I die up here, less likely to be a mountain lion, more likely to be a quail that flies out of the bush and gives me a freaking heart attack. Anyway, It's stories like that. Watching this kid go on to take our team to, and I was just thinking about this, probably more painful than any of the Super Bowl losses in a way, was our NFC Championship game, that Brock Purdy's rookie year, where we were on fire. Everything was clicking on all cylinders. And then in that game, the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, Brock Purdy goes down injured. We put in our backup quarterback. He gets injured. And I've literally never seen this. They changed the rules in the NFL, so you need to have at least 3 QBs now, because we only had 2 at that point, because he was our third, so then we got to a 4th. When he was out, we literally had no one who could pass the ball. One of the most painful things I've ever seen. We had no QB. George Kittle, great tight end, funny, hilarious guy. He was like, yo, can you throw left-handed?
Brock, lefty? Are you ambidextrous?
We had nothing. Oh. But again, that painful end of the season then makes me want to see the storyline. And then when we went back to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, I'm like, oh, we got it. Lost again. Even more painful. But it's these storylines, it's these narratives, and even if he's losing in the Super Bowl, the fact that he made it from Mr. Irrelevant to there, it's watching these storylines play out in real life on these teams that you like. That's so fun and so enjoyable to root for, and watch the human element play out amongst the context of the sports league. Speaking of, like, I was just thinking about, man, like some of the older teams we had back in the Kaepernick days when we had, Jim Harbaugh as our coach, who's now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, right? Bless them for getting him, because he loved Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a very strategic coach. He's very good for a lot of reasons. But Jim Harbaugh wore his emotions on the sleeve. He'd rip the headset off, throw it down. He'd get pissed off. There was actually, this is a story not even about when he's with the Niners. There's a story recently about an elevator breaking down, I think, on the facility or something. And all these Chargers players with their quarterback, Justin Herbert, getting stuck in the elevator for, I want to say it was at least a few hours. And Jim Harbaugh gets asked about it in an interview. And he's like, oh man, I just missed it. I just got off on the elevator before or something like that. He's like, how great would that have been? How amazing would that be? That bonding experience.
11 or 12 of our players were there for about 2 hours. And that's a shared experience. Brought them closer together. I just missed it, being on that elevator. And it's like, I wish I could have been there with those guys,
Like, this dude is just, there's something about these people. There's the vitality, this energy, this camaraderie that's so infectious with the right people, It's electric, as they say. It's so cool. It's so beautiful to see these teams rally around these people, these personalities, their goals. That era, that Jim Harbaugh, when we went against his brother, John Harbaugh also, they called it the Hard Bowl. That was my, I think, senior year of college. I actually watched it down in Watsonville at the same house I always go to. Dragged my girlfriend at the time along with it. She was falling asleep in the middle of it. I was honestly, in retrospect, being a total jerk, waking her up. You can't. But also for me, I'd never seen the 49ers in my lifetime in a Super Bowl. My girlfriend's there to watch it with me, and she's just falling asleep. So, I could have been a lot more gracious about it, but the power dies, and I want to say it was the first quarter, definitely the first half. Not at the fam's house, at the Super Bowl. There was a power outage at the Super Bowl. Whew, how exciting that was. Again, ultimately, as you know, we lost that one, but watching that team build up, grow, still one of my favorite eras of the 49ers. And you know what? Shout out to, there's a ton of fan bases out there who've either never won a Super Bowl or have way in the past and haven't recently. And that's what's so cool, is that there's these fan bases. Winning is the goal, but it's not the end all be all. It's the journey. It's the camaraderie. For me, it's the fact that when I wasn't into any other sports and stuff, and maybe when I was younger, didn't have as much stuff to relate to either people in my family or just other people in society at large. The Niners, it's a cultural thing. It's a kind of tribal thing, but I think in a relatively healthy way. Don't get me wrong, people take it way too far. Anyone who gets violent over sports, fucking stupid. Don't do that shit. It's just dumb. But it's something that it's cool to be able to find a common ground with people over something that you can bond about. That's as goofy as some grown men throwing a football on a field, you know? So, yeah.
Thanks for watching the vlog. Watch another or subscribe here.